있었습니다만 끝까지 집중력을 잃지 않았던 유현의 세이브. 한기호도 빡. 슛! 맞았어요! 맞습니다!
맞았군요. 정훈 선수 피하지 않습니다. 머리. 그럼 잡아냈는데요. 그럼. 저빠 대부예요. 자 그리고 이거 어려웠거든요. 와 제대로 맞추지 못했잖아요. 와
야 이거를 막아내.
World Cup, Kim Yong-kwon.
돌아갑니다. 공동이 됩니다. 공동이 역전을 만듭니다. 2점의 갈비를.
Winners of the AFC Champions League 2020, Ulsan Hyundai.
You're listening to the K-League United podcast, proud partner of Football Nation Radio.
Hello, I'm going to say Ryan Walters coming to you from an actual bunker this week. For those of you that are watching the show live, you'll see very soon what my background looks like this week. And I am joined virtually by the one and only Matthew Binns. Matthew, welcome.
Welcome. It's very odd that I'm the one with the better microphone. Yeah.
Yes, welcome to the Jeju bunker, as it is. For this week's edition. I didn't feel like packing my microphone, which in hindsight was probably a little bit stupid, but you know, it is what it is. I definitely feel weird without a mic in front of me while we're recording this, and this will make no sense to people listening to the podcast, but that's what's going on down here.
People will be able to hear it. Ryan's in the bathroom this week. No, it doesn't sound that bad.
Fun fact, that's where the actual bunker is most weeks is we're here this week. We're celebrating the best saves from the month of August halfway through September. For those of you that are watching the live show, that was the intro that we had there. We're going to start rolling those out. Never too late to start giving the goalkeeper some love.
No, but well, I mean, Son Bom-kun, you didn't put him in, so clearly a little bit late, really.
Didn't make a super save in the league last month, did he? But perfect segue. Look at you on top of things already, Matthew. He did indeed make a super save last night, a super save in the AFC Champions League Round of 16, where Jeonbuk Hyundai comfortably saw their way through.
Yeah,
we'll talk about that one.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually all that we're going to do this entire show. Is we're going to talk about the AFC Champions League Round of 16 that saw 3 of 4 K-League teams progress. And I'm also going to try to not freak out at hearing myself echoing in this room. So for those of you listening to the audio version of this, thanks for sticking with us. But Matthew, is there anything else that we need to get to before we get to ACL?
Yeah, certainly. We've got a bit of housekeeping at kleague.com. There's a preview out, Jeonbuk Hyundai Motors versus Suwon Samsung Lewins. Not written by me this week. It's actually written by Matthias Janzak. He's taking the reins on that one. You can find that on kleague.com. There's also a FC Seoul versus Suwon FC preview, the alternative super match. That is also on there. That's written by Varian Paul Neat. We've also got the K-League round 30 preview, and I believe there's a K-League 2 preview on there as well. There are full interviews with Jonathan Moya and Samuel Nemani now on YouTube. I believe you know more about them, Ryan, having done the interviews yourself. And but speaking of YouTube, there is a new video out that we have already started this podcast with it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
titled "Paul Storms Out of Bucheon." Yes, watch our behind the scenes of going to games, what we experience in the press end. This is Paul driving down to watch his beloved Dejon, the title chasing Dejon, down at Bucheon FC 1995, bottom of the table Bucheon. What could possibly go wrong? Like, you find that on YouTube now.
Yeah, and Paul's typically very even-tempered in these kind of situations, so it's in no way an entertaining watch and something that I would highly recommend for everybody. I didn't necessarily think that I think it's 12, just over 12, or just over 11, it's about 12 minutes. I didn't think that was necessarily the best way to start the show this week, but who knows? If that's what folks want, if you want us to start doing some of those, then sure, we'll stream those live before we come on here, and you look at our mugs and we talk about AFC Champions League, which let's jump into this, and let's start with the bad news, Matthew.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to get bad news, boy, what a way it was to get it with Nagoya Grampus running away 4-2 winners over Daegu FC. This match had me sweating a lot, trying to keep up with the coverage throughout. But this was a massively entertaining game to kick off the eastern portion of the ACL round of 16. It just didn't necessarily go the way.
Somebody's flushing the toilet next door to you there, Ryan.
I should mention that there's also a typhoon on the way to Jeju
There is a
right
typhoon,
now.
it should be said.
So this is where my priorities are, that I am holed up in this temporary location.
And we're
next
making
to a window,
you do Champions League.
next to a window with a typhoon coming. But you know what? This poor audio quality, this is what the people demand, and this is what the people get. Also, the lighting in here is just fantastic. But anyway, let's get back to things that were fantastic. And let's talk about Jakub Svirchuk. If I'm pronouncing that anywhere near correctly, I'm just going to pretend that I am. Bagged a hat trick on his debut. This is somebody that Nagoya Grampus went out and brought in specifically for this reason, and he's doing the job. And fun fact here, he was the first Polish player to score a hat trick in ACL. So there you go. But Matthew, what went wrong for Daegu in this one?
I think just not good enough, really. I think Nagoya Grampus, they looked the better side throughout. They looked like they're more accustomed to this stage. They're not so much more accustomed than Daegu, but this is Daegu's first time in the knockouts of this competition. I mean, all credit to Daegu. They came out firing 4 minutes. Cecina put them straight away in front. They got pegged back immediately by Svirchuk, but Edgar Silva doing what he normally does, header on the half-hour mark to put Daegu in the lead at half-time and put them in control. But what did happen after Edgar got his goal shortly after Jong Tae-uk, the giant defender, and a podcast favourite, he unfortunately got injured, and it didn't really seem to work then much for Daegu. I don't think you can put their entire defeat down to his absence, but it certainly had an impact. It wasn't the replacement Park Han-bin certainly couldn't match up to the person he'd replaced. Yeah, no, and I, as you can see, we've got Osri Furman coming in the comments there and agreeing with that. And yeah, I think that was when the game really turned. Is Jung Tae-uk we see him week in and week out in domestic play. We see him marshaling that back line in a way that nobody else on Daegu really can. And when you take him out of there and you've got Svirchuk in the form that he was in, the confidence that he had in that match, it was only going to go one way at that point, which is a big shame because Daegu came out strong. There was a deflection on Cecina's shot, but it's a great shot. I love that he took it. So I'm not even gonna go into that. And an excellent celebration from him, as always. A nice polite bow if you haven't seen that one out on social yet. But yeah, Daegu in this one, it just, I don't know if it's maybe better for them to focus on other things, but the record that they are getting out of this one is that they have now lost all five of their previous games against Japanese opposition in ACL and have conceded 13 times in those 5 matches. Obviously, 4 of those came in this one, but not great from Daegu. Not great from Daegu, but I mean, you just said then whether they should focus on other things. It does allow them to focus on other things. Allows them to focus on the FA Cup, which they're still in. It does allow them to focus on qualifying for the Champions League 2022. But I always have a problem with that kind of logic. I guess winning the FA Cup would be great for them, but they're not going to win the league title. So unless they're going down the Arsenal route of assuming third place is a trophy, then they should have really been going for this. They should have really been putting all their stock in this, and they did. They played a strong team. It just wasn't to be. They did have a real chance here until John Taylor. He wasn't the only factor, but they did have a real chance to do something here, and it's a shame that we won't be able to see them in the quarterfinals because they are an entertaining team. Probably more entertaining than a couple of the other K-League teams that are in this competition still.
Hey.
We can do the usual boys played well cliche, but I'd be gutted by that.
I think so. Yeah, I think just because, like you say, they came out strong. Cecina getting them on top within 5 minutes away from home. And I mean, that's another thing that I think we need to talk about here is that because of the world that we're living in still and the way that things are set up, this was essentially a home match for Nagoya Grampus with a crowd, which is also an important thing to note. The matches that happened in Japan did have audiences in attendance. And do you think did that play into this at all, in your opinion?
Probably, but it shouldn't have. I mean, K-League clubs, they've been playing in various levels of attendances, different regulations on COVID. They've been playing a lot behind closed doors. The crowds, I don't think, should have affected them as much as you would normally think. Travel could come into it as well. It's not their usual training grounds. They are the away team. I just think it was a case of quality. Nagoya had it in Svirchuk.
They did indeed, and they also had it between the posts, between the sticks there with Mitch Langerak doing his thing, coming up with some big saves as he did. And as you mentioned, Nagoya did indeed have the quality, and they've actually equaled their longest ACL undefeated streak of 7 games, which they set back in 2009. But that was 4 wins and 3 draws. This one is 6 wins and just 1 draw. So Nagoya is going to be a problem for whoever gets them, whichever of the K-League teams that are remaining. And I mean, I don't know. I'm a little greedy. I would have loved for it to be 4 K-League teams representing the East, and we could just already guarantee that it'll be a K-League team in the final. But it's nice to have a little bit of competition in there. So, and if we're going to have somebody, Nagoya has been pretty fun to watch throughout this tournament. I know they're obviously known much more for their defensive prowess in domestic play, but they've had a lot of really entertaining goals in ACL, and that's what you want. It's just a shame. It's a shame that Daegu had to be the one that they knocked out. I'm not going to say who it could have been that I might have preferred, but it wasn't Daegu. And we'll end on a positive note for Daegu there, and we will just say that Cecina, in case you didn't know, the man is an absolute beast. He created 5 chances against Nagoya Grampus, which is more than anybody else in the entire round of 16, East or West, in a single match. And overall, he created 18 chances in Champions League. So we love him, but unfortunately, he won't be continuing in this tournament. A team that will be continuing in this tournament by the skin of their teeth, Ulsan Hyundai, 0-0 through 120 minutes. And then we go to a penalty shootout, and it turns out Cho Hyun-woo is pretty decent at football, Matthew.
Yeah, well, I mean, we already knew that, but he certainly he proved it in the penalty shootout. He'd proved it in the match as well. He'd done some terrific last gas saves to try and to keep Kawasaki Frontale at bay. It was a good match for a 0-0. Slightly bit frustrating. There wasn't as many chances as we would have liked. These are 2 league leaders, both trying not to give each other the edge. But I mean, talk about Cho Hyun-woo, we should really probably talk about the divot as well, because that seemed to get more talk online than any heroics that the Daegu keeper was, not the former Daegu keeper rather, the Ulsan keeper made.
Yeah, the divot there, that was an interesting one, especially when Lee Dong-jun goes up to take his penalty and he just lifts an entire chunk of the turf up and tries to lay it back down and pat it down. And I mean, I should have said this online at the time. I was a bit busy. But what I wanted to say is that both teams have to deal with that. I saw a lot of people online complaining that, oh, this is unfair and blah, 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 blah. Well, it's unfair for both people that have to try to plant their foot there. It's not this massive advantage for Ulsan to have to try to keep their footing the same way that everybody else has to try to keep their footing.
Well,
it's unfortunate, but
yeah, it's unfortunate. But the argument would be that Lee Dong-jun had not one but two opportunities to score that penalty and missed both of them. So it wasn't a great advantage to him. Perhaps he hasn't had time to get accustomed to all the divots and dips in Ulsan's field in his half a season there or so. But yeah, it's for both teams. I can see why people would say, "Oh, yeah, but it's Ulsan's ground," but you still got to kick it off a divot, and it just wasn't to be.
Well, I think for me, Ulsan, and we've kind of got this coming in the comments right now, Ulsan got Kawasaki Frontale at the exact right time. The runaway league leaders for most of the season, they are currently being chased by the mighty Yokohama F Marinos, the team that I went and saw in person. So they're mine. Got in there before they won the title. Don't worry, I'm not that much of a glory hunter, but that is the one J-League team whose ground I've been to. So happy to see that happening. Tangents aside, they are currently chasing Kawasaki Frontale, and Kawasaki entered with just 1 win in 5 heading into this one. So you got to imagine that confidence wasn't necessarily what it was in the group stage, where they scored 27 goals in the group stage. Again, those numbers are a little bit skewed. In case you're just tuning into the round of 16, the group stage numbers are a little skewed because all of the Chinese teams sent their kids. So it's hard to take those numbers for much. But again, that confidence was there for Frontale. And in this one, they only managed 2 shots on target. 2. That is the lowest for them since February of 2018, also against Ulsan Hyundai. So it would appear that the Horangi kind of know how to play this team. And I say kind of because we all remember what happened in the 2018 group stage. But it was an interesting matchup. I was hoping that this one would have been a little bit more like Nagoya and Daegu was. But in the end, I think this is the result that most K-League fans wanted, most Korean football fans. And I know that's a whole other controversy I'm not going to touch tonight. But Matthew, as somebody that's cheering for the team, trying to overtake them domestically, was this a statement win for Ulsan, in your opinion?
Yes, in a way, I guess. Beating the league leaders in Japan, the reigning champions of Japan, is always a statement, so to speak. But we can only really this. They're only in the quarterfinals of the competition. Yeah, statement win, big win, but they've still got to get over a giant neon green hurdle in the league. That why they may think they've done it once this season, they know it's coming. And I don't think we can really. Yes, Ulsan are the reigning AFC Champions League champions, aren't they? So I really backed myself into a corner with that one there. Sorry. I was expecting.
Keep going.
Caught me off guard with this question, but I think.
The question that was in the rundown, I caught you off guard with that one?
Yeah, that one. Yeah, the one you wrote. The one you wrote for me to check and I've not answered. Yes, that one. No, but this fixture would normally be before the summer, wouldn't it? So the teams usually win the round of 16, then we have a nice summer break, and then we go into the quarterfinals, and then we start to discuss. So, because we're kind of on the end of the season, we're all thinking, oh, that's it, Ulsan, they're on for the treble. Seoul were on for the treble in 2016. Seoul were in the semi-finals of the this competition. They're in the final of the FA Cup. They only won the league, and that was with some assistance. So I don't think we can really...
Only won the league. Okay.
Yeah, well, however you like it. They had a 9-point deduction that fell in their favour.
No.
But people are going to judge this Ulsan side when they win the competition that they can't win, I think. Great. If they win this again, they're going to be champions of Asia again. That's a fantastic achievement. I want Jeonbuk to be champions of Asia. I'm not trying to diminish what they've achieved in this competition, because what they've achieved is fantastic. And yeah, it is a big win, but I don't think we can really say Ulsan are there until they do what they haven't done and haven't been able to do for the last 2 years. And they've got every chance of doing it this year. I think that it is a good team. I think this is, like I said, I'm not really here to criticize them. I'm just trying to temper expectations. This is a good team. It's a good win. This one, it's the second clean sheet in a row, which is great because they'd conceded in 7 of their last 8 matches prior to that John Book game. Their defense was leaky. They've managed to shore that up at the back. It has stopped them from scoring somehow. But yeah, optimistic signs, and this will certainly be a good, it's a good victory for them. But let's not get carried away.
It is a good victory for them, and it's one that pushed their record streak in ACL to 16 straight wins in this competition, 17 unbeaten. And the most interesting thing about that to me is that they haven't conceded more than a single goal over that entire stretch and have held 9 clean sheets. So like you say, the defense is really doing the work for them there. And we know this is a competition that they can win. We know that this format is something that they're comfortable with the matches coming thick and fast in the group stage like they did, but now things have slowed down, and it shouldn't be a spoiler if you're a fan of Korean football, the results of the other ACL games, but Dan Croydon pointed this out online, that it's going to be interesting for Ulsan, because if they want to repeat, they're going to have to beat either Pohang or Jeonbuk, or both, if they're going to make their way to the final. So wouldn't it be interesting if they had to run that gauntlet on the international stage? I would love to see it. But to talk a little bit about those teams that they might have to face and how they got there, we're going to do that right after we take a quick break. We'll be right back.
FNR is a revolutionary football-dedicated digital platform, the first of its kind in Australia. It provides a 24/7 live online radio platform experience, podcast hub, and acts as a content provider for TV, radio, and digital. Having reached millions of listeners and football fans since launching, FNR is accessible worldwide via its website or app, providing a platform to discuss, debate, and celebrate the world game. We are your voice of football, FNR Football Nation Radio.
Welcome back to the K-League United podcast from what's going to sound like a bathroom on the podcast edition. I'm your host, Ryan Walters, and I'm joined by the silky, soothing sounds of Matthew Binns.
Hello.
That's how I'm going to start introducing you every time, just to see how you deal with it and how awkward it is for you. Well, I was going to say, speaking of awkward, let's talk about Jeonbuk, but no, we're going to save that. We're going to save that.
All right.
Because what I want to talk about next instead is a team that I'm just going to say they surprised me. I think that they surprise more than just me, though, and that was the Pohang Steelers, who went to Japan and came away 1-0 winners over Cerezo Osaka. Lee Sung-mo's 25th minute strike ended up being the difference in this one, and a nice goal from him, really, a corner kick that kind of found its way through the box. And we always refer to full stretch for a keeper, obviously, but did well get his leg at about chest height, sort of a karate kick of sorts, and found his way through the box, and that ended up doing it. I mean, this is the Cerezo team. Again, the groups were what they were, but this is a Cerezo team that had Kichi in their group, who performed quite well and only lost out to Pohang on goal difference to make it to the round of 16. So there was some quality there. I thought Port was pretty good in that group as well. So it's not like they didn't necessarily earn their way here, but Pohang went out and held a clean sheet. How did they get this one done?
Just really holding on. The first half was quite even, in all fairness to them. I think Shin Jin-ho was doing well. I mean, he actually sent in the corner, which he didn't assist. It was flicked on by John Min Kwang, who then met Lee Sung-mo at the far post to make it 1-0. But they kind of held on. So they missed some chances as well to equalise, some sitters, perhaps. There was a first from Matsuda shortly after that first goal, and then friend of the podcast, Adam Taggart, also missed the opportunity. I wasn't going to bring it up.
No.
Till he's back in K-League, we can bring them all up. Pohang cleared one off the line early in the second half as well. They had a good chance to double the lead. But yeah, so they had a last chance at the 88th minute. Pohang did make a mess of a corner in. It was Toriyami. Apologies. He had the effort, but he poked it wide. He kicked it wide. So yeah. Cerezo looked good for this. Pohang rode their luck a little, but they weren't that lucky. They deserve to go through as much as Cerezo Osaka. I think Kim Gi-dong, just how good is he? Like last year, he won the Manager of the Year award. We didn't agree with it. I think it should have gone to Kim Tae-wan. I'll still die on that hill. It should have been Kim Tae-wan's award to lose.
100%.
But perhaps he's just won it a year earlier, because I think he should really be considered as one of the best coaches in the league at present. Clearly, the league already thinks he is. He has a team that is evidently so trained, so well drilled, that when the Pohang board comes in and strips him of his best players, just selling them under his nose without his approval, he still manages to keep this team playing in a shape, playing in a way that keeps them competitive. Yeah, okay, they're not where they were in the K-League last season, but they're still there. They're still there and thereabouts. And they looked okay against Cerezo Osaka as well. So, I mean, John Book have taken so many players from Pohang. Perhaps they should be really looking to the bench.
I mean, you might not have needed to take all the players if you would have got him in the first place. But yeah, like I say, it's been impressive from Pohang. They have just 8 clean sheets in the league this year in 28 matches. They have 4 in ACL in 7 matches. So defense, I mean, look, any of us watching Korean football often enough know that defense is the name of the game. But as Ulsan showed and as Pohang showed, the East Coast Derby rivals there are showing that you can get this done with defense. And really, Pohang did there. And like you say, Cerezo, yeah, maybe they could have got one in there, but they didn't. Look, everybody says they could have painted a Campbell's soup can, but you didn't. So same thing, right? We're just going to call the art that is Pohang is the same as a Warhol. Same.
We'll
you heard it here first. Yeah. Last week's big reveal was that Matthew hates Son Heung-min. This week's big reveal is that Pohang play to an artistic level on par with a Campbell's soup can. I'm not going to say Andy Warhol. I'm not going to do that. Anyway, speaking of the timing of things, we talked about it for Ulsan, so I feel like it's fair to talk about it with Pohang as well. Cerezo have now lost 3 of their last 5 in all competitions, and in each of those losses, they were held scoreless. So this is another team that I feel was coming in at the right time from a K-League fan's perspective, where they weren't the hottest that they could have been coming into this.
No, they weren't, and it's another J-League team out. Just going to leave it at that. Okay, they had their moment in the sun a couple of seasons ago, but it's natural order's being resumed in this competition. K-League teams always often get the better of them, and
still maintain the record of the most AFC Champions League titles. Just saying.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah.
We'll save it. We'll save it for the quarterfinals when we can really pick on Nagoya Grampus as much as possible.
When they go on and win it.
When they go on and win the East. Which, look, man, that team, they could. But when that time comes around, we'll get some folks on from the J-Talk podcast or some other Japanese football experts, and we will talk to them about that. I'm not going to go into that too much. But a team that we do know a lot about, Matthew, we've buried the lead for long enough. Let's talk about Jeonbuk Hyundai Motors going to penalties in a 1-1 draw.
Going to the quarterfinals.
That's what I meant.
Champions League.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
For the first time since 2018, that's the headline, and that's the headline we should be sticking to.
That could be a headline.
It could. It is in some outlets, but yes, Jeonbuk affiliated outlets. Yes, Jeonbuk made hard work of a fixture that, with no offense intended to BG Pathum United, it was a fixture Jeonbuk should have walked, not just because of the vast gap in quality that Jeonbuk already possessed, but also the gap in quality considering BG Pathum had no Diogo, which one of their key players. They had no Victor, they had no Tunes. That's 3 of their foreign players out. Their coach, Aurelio Vidmar, couldn't pass COVID regulations, so couldn't fly to Korea. So they were playing with assistant coaches. So it was a very depleted Pathum United side. If you want more information, you should listen to Thai League Central. I caught their live stream before this game just to get the insight track on there. So yeah, you follow them at TL_Central, and they were even mentioning how bad they thought the John Book training facilities that they had given them as well might be playing into the factor. So yeah, against all these supposed odds, John Book couldn't really get it done against this side. Pathum, they were forced into a fairly rigid and compact 5-4-1 because of their absentees. It was very much a team that was set up for damage limitations, a team that was set up for extra time. Where against Ulsan they played a 3-5-2. And we saw against Ulsan they were quite a far livelier side in both occasions. And the formation they played, it was so compact that John Book were forced into early changes. 30 minutes. Kim Sang-shik immediately removed Kim Sung-dae, who, as we talked on last week's podcast, is not very effective. I'm surprised he even started. And they removed Takehiro Kunimoto, which did surprise me a little bit. He wasn't really having the best of games. They brought in Son Min-kyu, and Gustavo switched to more of a straightforward 4-4-2. 2 target men in there because what's better than one Kim Shin-wook replacement, but 2. And
whoa, let me stop you right there. There is no replacing Kim Shin-wook.
No.
Kim Shin-wook is like the Highlander. There can be only one.
But yeah, so they just forced John Book to play a more a less creative game. And it didn't help either. So that's all the good stuff for Pathum United. Fair play. I'm going to praise them to the hilt. To be honest, at one point it was like call 112 because I think I like to report a robbery in John Jew because I honestly I was watching the penalty shootout thinking I want John Book to win. Do I? Yes, I do. I do want them to win.
Don't I?
Yeah. I mean, look at the XG for this game. John Book dominated this game stat wise. They had 33 shots by the end of it, I think it was, or 30 shots, 11 on target.
They had 39 shots actually.
Wow.
Which is the highest number in any ACL game since Opta started keeping stats in 2013.
Well, I mean, it's good for John Book, who have a stereotypically low shot count this season, but I mean, it doesn't really count for much when those shots are of low quality or miles off target. John Book did have a good XG. They did their expected goals. It was 3.57 to Pathum's 0.5. So how I read that is John Book won that 4-1. But no.
Yep. That's how that went down.
They're so slow. They're so slow in transition. They get the ball, and if you want to break a compact team up, you've got to move quickly. You've got to move swift. You've got to get players out of position. And instead, John Book, they get right there to the edge of the penalty box and they play it out wide so they can play in the cross. And they do it every time. It's like they're countering. They only made 3 counterattacks in this whole game. Now, yeah, it's hard to make counterattacks when
you got 80% of the ball, basically.
Yeah, it's hard to make counterattacks when a team's sitting so deep. But when they did have the ball, you're like, move, pass it forward, pass it direct. You got players running on the inside, and then they always choose the option to go outside every single time. They are out of ideas. It's like Kim Sang-shik is obsessed with possession stats. I don't know what it is. He just loves it. He must think he gets extra points from because I don't understand. It's boring. That's what it is.
Yeah, and I was going to ask about that. I'm loving the passion here. I'm loving it because it leads into 2 questions that I was going to ask, and one of which is like, what on earth did he say to them before the game? Because it was very odd in the opening 20 minutes, 30 minutes. John Book looked like the team that was under the gun. They looked like the team that was under pressure. And like you said, we've never seen them take this many shots. They just don't do it in K-League. They mainly only shoot when they know they're going to score. They've got a great chance of scoring. And that's been their MO. Whereas in this one, they just kept peppering the net with shots. And it didn't play out. And I guess it leads into the question that I was going to ask, which you're already halfway there on it, is Kim Sang-shik, which, by the way, for everybody that's listening to the international feeds or calling those games. It is Schick, not sick. Like Kim Sang-sik got very old. But anyway,
how you're describing his brand of football.
Is he unable to manage tournament football? Because this was brought up in the comments. You put this out on Twitter, which I would love for you to bring up that record in penalty shootouts. It's just a terrible, terrible record for such a good team. But this is in the same season. They almost lost to BG Pathan United at home. And that's the thing. Like BG, they are a great team. Credit to them. This is their first ACL campaign. I thought they were fantastic. They were entertaining. They held their own in a very, very difficult group. They had the reigning ACL champions in their group. They were at home for that, so that's a little bit of an advantage. But still, they did well. They're carrying the flag for ASEAN clubs. Loved seeing them there, and it would have been nice to see them through, but I will carry my Korean football flag through for this one, the only time that I'll say nice things about Jeonbuk. But Matthew, this is a team that's been knocked out of the FA Cup by a much lower division side this year and just have not looked the part in ACL when they're not facing the kids. Can they just not play in the tournament?
I think that's a bit... I do think that's a bit harsh. I don't think they can play in the K-League either. But no, it is harsh because... two points I'd make on it, serious points, because FA Cup, Che Kang-hee never took the FA Cup seriously, and neither Jose Moraes in his first season. So I don't think, yes, they lost to Yangju Citizen. It was a massive upset, but they've never taken that competition seriously. Last year was the cup set with Jeonbuk winning it. They always go out to lower league opposition. They've never taken it seriously. And this competition, they won 5 out of their 6 group games, drawing the other. It's not like they've taken this competition and approached it with such arrogance and such a blasé attitude. They have really focused in that group stage, and then they come to this game. Now, so it makes me think, if this game was in isolation, we could have just said it's one of those games. It happens. It happens in the FA Cup. It happens to all the best teams. Sometimes a team sits back and you're supposed to beat them. You've got everything in your favour and you just can't. It happens in football. And I think that's how we should really have been treating this game. But the fact is, we know what's happening in the league week in, week out, and it's the same thing. It's slow. They are not taking shots. They just want to pass it and pass it and pass it until they can guarantee a goal, which sounds like it sounds wonderful in theory, but in practice, it's just dull and it's slow. And you look at how fast Che Kang-hee's team moved in 2018. They were pressing from the front. They'd get the ball, they'd win it back, and they'd go straight into the counter, and they'd be moving. Jose Moraes slowed that down, and Kim Sang-sik, instead of pulling that back a bit, has just taken it further than Jose Moraes in terms of slowing this team down. This team, dare I say, don't really deserve to win anything at this moment in time. And I don't want to see Kim Sang-sik fail. I don't. He's a player for the club. He's supposed to be the proof that Jeonbuk are operating like, quote unquote, a proper football club, or a club that a well-organized football club, a well-run football club. Kim Sang-sik is supposed to be that proof. He was the assistant under Che Kang-hee. He was the assistant under Jose Moraes. He's come through the background, the backroom staff. He's also played for the club. Jeonbuk have a holistic approach to signings with a director of football buying players that fit a strategy. But we're now at this point where it's like there's a manager in charge who he's blunting the talent. I see a comment in from Asri Furman, and I can't agree more. Jeonbuk has such high firepower, but I feel that Kim Sang-sik is wasting it. Exactly. Song Min-kyu come into this squad about 6 games ago. Where is he? It was refreshing to see him play for Korea, because he looks he looks like he's on a leash. He looks like they don't want to release this talent. Moon So-min, he came back and it looked like he hadn't got the memo for a couple of weeks. And now it's like Moon So-min doesn't really do it either. It's just this constant, don't do that, it's risky, you're going to lose the ball. Well, win it back then. That's what Jeonbuk used to do. Win it back. Well, play the through ball, and if it goes through, you're going to score with Gustavo Ilyachenko there. So anyway, that's where I stand with it. I want him to do well. I want him to prove Jeonbuk wrong. I don't want this to, not Jeonbuk wrong. I want him to prove fans wrong. I want him to do well, but not with this brand of football.
Well, we'll see if he can get it done, because this might be a trophyless season and the first in a long, long time for Jumbuk. The first since K-League United has been around, and a little bit longer, actually, might be the case. But they do have a chance to win their third AFC Champions League title, because they are on to the round of 16, despite all of that we were just saying. And yeah, I mean, I agree that I think that it's bizarre watching them play sometimes, just because of the amount of talent that's on that team, which we know. And I mean, you've joked about this. I think you joked about it last week, that you've got 2/3 of the attacking talent from Pohang last year with Jumbuk now. And that Pohang team last year, I mean, Pete had them pegged to win the league this year had they just kept that roster intact. And I don't think he was too far off from that, but we'll see. But I mean,
it's worth saying he did mention it in his post-match comments. He apologised to the fans for the performance, and he did say that they've got a problem in front of goal, and that's what he said in the post-match. I mean, that's not going to solve it. He says they're just got to keep training and get over it, but they've got a problem in front of goal because it's not working for them. It's just too slow. It's boring. It was getting increasingly boring under Jose Moraes, but they still look like a team that could switch it on. I don't know whether they can do it this time. 4 points is not a massive gap for a previous iteration of Jumbuk. This Jumbuk, I think 4 points might be too much to catch up with Ulsan.
Well, Ulsan will certainly be hoping that that's the case. But regardless of what happens in the league or what their performance was like, Jumbuk are on to the quarterfinals, which they will host in Jeonju. So that is going to be very, very interesting coming up next month. I am looking forward to my trip to Jeonju for that one, but we will talk about that more when the time comes. As it is right now, we are going to take another quick break, and then we'll be back on the other side to answer some of the questions that have come in live and some of the ones that we had beforehand. We will be right back.
O.G. Lewis is your neighborhood British bar and cafe located in the Old Giro district of Seoul. Decorated in old English antiques and furniture for a true homely feel, you can enjoy homemade scones, cakes and afternoon tea during the day, and traditional British favorites like beef stew, English ale, and a fine selection of wines at night. Available for private parties or simply an evening out, OG Lewis is sure to become your favorite neighborhood pub. Be sure to mention K-League United at the bar during your visit, and you'll get 10% off your bill.
Welcome back to the K-League United podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Walters, in an echo chamber, joined not in an echo chamber by Matthew Bin.
Hello. In fact, I'm not in an echo chamber. I'm in a mailbag.
Hey, there it is.
Ruining your intro there, just getting it in, making you feel awkward this time. Anyway, yeah, OG Louis mailbag. Just shout it. That's the branding they want. That's what they asked for. That's what they specifically asked for. Dog in the advert. I shout the name whenever I can. So OG Louis mailbag number 1. We have Diogo via Twitter. He's come in. Ulsan as the reigning champions are one of the favourites to win the ACL. Do you guys think they can do it? Or being the front runner to win every competition they're in will prove to be a disadvantage?
I mean, I think fighting on 3 fronts is going to be difficult. They do have a ton of depth, though. This is a team that was built to make a run in 3 different competitions. I think it's going to be a little bit difficult for them to decide which one they can't care about at this point. I don't think that's really going to be any of them, because the FA Cup, you're on to the semifinals, and if you sleep on Jeonnam, you're going to pay the price. And maybe they're going to pay the price anyway. Who knows? Who knows how that one's going to go down? I know. Jeonnam are on to the final. Champions League is coming back to Gwangyang. It's going to happen. Anyway, I don't know if that pressure is really going to get to them, especially because, like we've been saying, and in case you don't know this, the quarterfinals and semifinals are going to take place within quick succession next month in Jeonju. So it's a pretty big advantage for the Korean sides, of which there are 3 or 4 of them. And then Nagoya doesn't have a necessarily long trip there. But for Ulsan, we might not have fans in the stands for that as well, if COVID restrictions are where they are right now. So I don't really think there's going to be a ton of pressure until they get into the final. And then you're into the final, and the pressure is always going to be there anyway. So I don't I don't really think it's going to factor in this year the way that it would, or you could argue should, in previous iterations, and hopefully future iterations.
Mm-hmm. They're the front winner to win everything. I think. I just don't know whether they'll win all of them. I could very well see them winning the league, and then John Book just penaltying their way up to the final. They've won one now. They've won one penalty shootout.
John Book, they win one penalty shootout in like a decade.
We're gonna win every one of them. It's their first. They had lost their previous eight penalty shootouts. Previous 8 penalty shootouts going back to 2008. Well, they've won one now. Going to win them all.
That's sure.
That's how it's good. Yeah. But no, I think Ulsan will. They're the favourites to win every competition, in my opinion. They won't win them because I think it's too many plates to handle. I think Ulsan, not being an Ulsan fan and just completely speaking for them, surely they would want the league just because it's what they haven't been able to acquire in so long. But
I
anyway,
think it's the trophy that they need. I think it's the trophy that Korean football needs, to be honest. Yeah. ACL would be fantastic. It's always fantastic, but we need somebody else to win the league title. So please, somebody.
Not really. No, we just need well-run football clubs to win the title. That's what we need. Anyway, Azri Furman via Twitter. There are 3 K-League teams remaining in the ACL. But based on their matches in the last 16, are you convinced they can go all the way and win it all? Any of them can go all the way?
Yeah. I mean, look, sometimes you got to win ugly. And we can talk about Ulsan, and we did obviously talk about Ulsan, but like Kawasaki Frontologist has not lost many games. So to be able to beat them in any capacity right now, that takes some doing. So, I mean, Ulsan, I wouldn't take anything away from them there. And Jeonbuk, yeah, they probably should have won that in 90. Pohang, I think we got to be done doubting Pohang and what they're capable of at this point. And again, these are going to be taking place in Korea, so they're going to have a really good head of steam going into that final, which is going to be in the West this year. So there'll be an advantage there. I mean, on the balance of play, from what I've seen in the East and the West, I think that the West is stronger this year. I think a lot of that also has to do with the fact that the group stages were stronger because nobody in the West sent youth squads. So, I mean, when you've got Al Hilal doing their thing, they're always going to be pretty fearsome. So can they? Sure. Will they? I don't know.
Well, we'll see. Todd Wild via Twitter. Daegu. Then a prolonged pause. No doubt that qualifying out.
You have to say it with drama.
Daegu. No doubt that qualifying out of their. One for the people watching. No doubt that qualifying out of their group represents a successful ACL, but what do they need to do to go further in the knockout stage next year, assuming they qualify? Todd really should have put after that. But
we all know they're going to qualify because they're going to finish third after they lose to the Jeonnam Dragons in the FA Cup final. That's how it's going to happen. Anyway, they've got to build a deeper squad. I mean, the main thing that we were talking about in their match there was Jung Tae-uk goes down and their defense goes down with him. You can't have that. I mean, good Lord, what happens if Cecina gets hurt? What are you going to do?
Yeah, no, that was exactly what I was going to say. They need to more depth. They've got a great structure there. They play quite nice football, but they need to have options from the bench, and they need to have depth if these things go wrong. Final question. Speaking of third, Suwon FC fan via Twitter. Hi, do you think Suwon FC can keep third place until end of the season? Do you see teams like Pohang or Daegu with more possibilities?
I love that you gave him a sing-song voice as well. Can they keep third place until the end of the season? If Lars Veldvik keeps scoring goals like this, and there's no reason to think that he's going to slow down anytime soon. I mean, the race for third has been really interesting all year. I mean, at one point we were talking about Daegu maybe even being in title contention. They definitely fell off of that with that massive winless streak that they had. But if you look at it right now, I mean, it is two teams at the top, as it always is. You got Suwon, Daegu, and Pohang all within 2 points of each other. Suwon Blue Wings, I don't necessarily see coming back up into that fight. So if you're Suwon, then all you got to do is fight off Daegu, really, because I don't think Pohang's going to stay in that race. Daegu has the FA Cup to worry about, which, again, that's only a match here or there, so it's not going to be a ton. But I don't see any reason Suwon can't do it. And wouldn't that be nuts if they get promoted and then are in Champions League the following season? That'd be amazing.
They've certainly proved they can play against the big teams. They're the only. They've got a record similar to Ulsan against Jeonbuk, so they certainly don't fear them, and they've certainly shown Ulsan as well how to play football at some point. So yeah, they can perform. I guess if they get in the top 6, they've got no real pressure either, which can either result in them doing well, doing a Sangju, or result in them doing a Gwangju. There's two opposite sides to that coin. But yeah, I think Daegu will probably pose the biggest threat to them.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, and well, that wraps it up from the mailbag on Twitter.
And if folks would like to get more involved with the show, how can they do so, Matthew?
Oh, well, thank you, Ryan. If people would be willing to get more involved, you can do so on all our social media at K-League United. That's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, not TikTok, because we don't do that. Not yet. We're trying.
I like TikTok. I just haven't.
All right.
I just haven't got us on there yet because nobody.
But yeah.
Actually, you know what? If we can get Pete's not here this week, but he always jokes about it. We just need to get Pete and his all legs dancing in the fields of Gimje.
I went back before COVID was a thing. I've seen Pete dance, and I've seen Pete be told to stop dancing as well by bar staff, putting off the customers. So we'll see what we can do.
It's a sight.
It's a sight. But there is another way to get involved, and that is through Patreon. On Patreon, we've got the K-League Survivor Final again. Neither could be separated in the battle between Jared Sellers and Michael Baroff, with both of them losing last weekend. Yeah. So we've told them, go back and do it again. So we're going to find out what happens this weekend between the two. We've got so rare features, so rare elsewhere on the internet, but not on our Patreon. We have injury lineups for the $5 tier. That's your K2 champion tier. If you're wondering, you got all your injuries, your suspensions, and transfer rumors, and more. But if you'd like to bump that up to the K1 champion, we'll also chuck in our predictions of the starting lineups, the starting 11s from our range of writers covering the teams. We also have full player interviews and podcast extras as well. And tiers start as low as $1, $3, $5, but they go all the way to $10 as well.
And higher if you're interested in sponsoring the show. Just saying. And if you'd like to listen to this podcast live, you can do so every Thursday on Football Nation Radio down in Australia, as always. And if you subscribe via iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, TuneIn Radio, or wherever you download your podcast and leave a review, it's been up there for a little while, but we're going to leave it because we love it. It's the Daegu FC kit signed by Edgar and Cecina. We'll leave that up there for a little bit longer. I think we'll switch that out pretty soon. But it's there for now, so if you can get in there and leave a review now, then you're in with a shout for that one. But in the meantime, for Matthew Binns and the very real typhoon on the other side of this window, I'm Ryan Walters, and I hope to see you next week. Thanks for watching.
Good job!